Cooper, are we ready online? Sorry. Okay. Good evening and welcome to our town hall meeting tonight. Thank you so much for coming out for information and to ask questions. We appreciate everyone being here. We are also streaming online, so welcome to those of you who have joined us online. We're so glad that you're here as well. We will be taking questions from our online platform as well, so if you have questions, make sure you get those typed in, and the guys will let me know what those are when we get to the end of the presentation, and we'll address all of the questions that come in. We're going to walk through a presentation. We have found that this presentation is a good overview of our bond project for 2022. It provides a lot of information, and then we'll give everyone a chance to ask any questions that you may have or discuss any comments that you would like to discuss. I will say that if you have seen this presentation before, you may have seen some changes. One of the things that we've done, we've been doing the same presentation since about mid-February, and since then we've made several changes. What we try to do is, as people ask questions or as people have comments or concerns, we try to add answers to those questions or more information. We've had some great feedback. We've had some questions that have been generated that caused us to actually go and do some more research and have some more information in there. So there may be some changes that you have not seen that are in this presentation. So we're just going to walk through and start from the very beginning. Just start with how we got to the point that we're at right now, which is to have called a bond election. So back in the early fall, we realized that there was a need that needed to be addressed, and that was our fast growth that was happening across the district. And so in trying to determine what we did as a district, we decided we needed to get the input of our community. So we started requesting people to volunteer to be part of a committee. Our facility growth committee, we wanted to look and see exactly what our community wanted. So we called for volunteers. We did not appoint. The district did not specify who was going to be on this committee. It was all voluntary. So anyone could participate. Anyone could be on the committee and be a part of the process. The process ended up being 64 members of the community were members of that committee. So 64 people began to meet with us. We met several times during the fall, at first just to talk about what the growth looked like, to look at what our demographers were saying about the growth, what the projected growth would be for our district, looked at some of the developments that were coming in and what impact those developments were having on our student counts. And then we began to talk about what the district needed. We let everybody on the committee voice their opinion as far as what was needed in the district. We put all of those things down and then began to prioritize them as a committee to look at exactly what our community wanted, what they thought the district needed, and then they put together a package of what they thought we needed to move forward with. We also had our financial advisor come in and look at our finances, look to see what kind of financial capacity we had as a district, how much could we afford to do, what could we do with the future growth, and began to get a number. The committee elected 4 chairpersons for the committee, and those volunteers began to lead out in what we were going to do as a committee. Those chair people made a presentation to our school board in January. They did present a recommendation from that committee for a bond election in the amount of $650 million. Our board contemplated that recommendation, thought about it, looked at it, and then in February, our school board called for a bond election on May the 7th. In the full amount of $650 million. Now that $650 million is broken up into a couple of different propositions, but in total it was for $650 million. 3 of the things that we've talked about since we very first started this whole process and started talking, it's kind of been the charge or the thing that we've tried to keep at the forefront of our discussions, is some of the things, the challenges that we as a district will be facing The first one, we're going to have at least 7,500 new homes in our district in the next 5 years. So with those new homes, of course, will be new students, which will impact our projected growth. We're going to be over capacity at all campuses by 23-24. And we're going to have at least 6,000 total students within 5 years. And so those things begin to really be obstacles for us as a district to try to figure out what we needed to do to be able to continue to offer the very best education for all of our students and trying to deal with those three things that were coming. So this is what the propositions look like that make up the $650 million of the bond. So these are separate. So when a voter goes into the voter booth, goes with their ballot and makes their vote for this on May the 7th, they will actually vote yes or no on each of these propositions, not one vote, but 3 separate votes. So the first vote in Proposition A is for $595 million. This is where you see the majority of the money being allocated from this bond. This is where we look at our campuses. So this is 4 elementary campuses. That's 2 elementary campuses added on the west side of the district and 2 elementary campuses added on the east side of the district, and then 2 middle schools, additional middle schools, middle school number 2 being on the west side of the district and middle school number 3 being on the east side of the district. Doubling the size of our high school, we just added 8 classrooms to our high schools to get us up to a 1,000 student capacity. And so what this proposition has in it is actually doubling that size and getting our high school up to a size of 2,100 students. And then there is renovations to Mclendon and Neesmith. We have several things with Mclendon and Neesmith that need to be upgraded. Both buildings need new roofs, and so we're looking at that, as well as new carpet, new fixtures, new paint. And then there's also some structural things that we're going to look at for both of those campuses to make sure that all of our campuses would provide a very aesthetic and safe and secure educational environment for all of our students across the district. And then there's a new ag facility that would replace our current barn that we have in the district. We have a very strong junior FFA and FFA that is growing, and so we want to make sure that we have that facility for that program. And then there are new support facilities that are going to be needed in the district. We ran 18 bus routes this year. Next year we're going to run 23 bus routes. We expect the following year to be up to close to 30 bus routes, and then we'll continue to add to that as our numbers increase. So with all of that, new buses that we have to purchase, we have to have a space to work on those buses, to house those buses, to wash those buses, and so we will need a new transportation area, as well as new maintenance and warehousing for the district. We will also need a new administrative facility, a new place for administration. We are currently moving administration out into a portable building to make room for the additional students that we are having next year. So and then there are land, which we have to be able to build these places, and then a project manager. A project manager is the only personnel unit that you can pay for out of a bond proposal. This person would be in charge of all of the projects that would be taking place in the district. They would oversee to make sure that we were getting the very best quality and value for every dollar that we spent. Currently, the district contracts with a third-party representative that fills that function for us, that is kind of the go-between with the district, and that person does a great job. However, that person also works with other districts and with other companies, and it is kind of the district's vision that we would have someone, if this many projects are going on, that we would have someone that would be devoted just to CISD and would be every day working to make sure that everything is up to par with all of our projects. And then there's Proposition B. Proposition B is $19 million. That's for a stadium upgrade. A lot of people question me on this one. Because when you look at the amount of money that people pay for stadiums in North Texas, it's much more than $19 million. And the explanation for that is that we would retain our track. We just had that redone, so we would keep the track as is. There would be nothing that have to do there. Our field would remain where it is, and the same field, we would re-turf that field. It's been about 10 years on that turf, and so we'd re-turf the field. And then most of that money would be spent in stadium expansion as far as seating capacity is concerned. We're at a point now where we're going to have to start looking at limiting the number of people we allow into our events that we hold in the stadium due to being overcapacity in that area. The money would also be used for restrooms, locker rooms, some ADA compliance concerns that we would have there. And so that's what the $19 million would pay for, in addition to other parking areas for both the school and events that we would hold in that space. And then Proposition C is for a multi-purpose indoor facility. This indoor facility would be used both by our athletic department and by all of our other extracurricular activities and our campuses. This would be a district-run facility, not an athletic-run facility, so we would be able to use it for a variety of things. This would have a full field inside, 120-yard field, and then it would also have locker rooms and some classrooms that would be utilized by the high school campus. In this, we could have our football team, baseball team, whoever needed to be inside, either with inclement weather or for conditioned space. But we could also use it for our band, our dance team, cheerleaders, anything like that. We have an outdoor ed program at our middle school where they do archery, and so they could do that inside when they needed to. We could also use it if one of the elementaries had a field day plan and it rained. We could bus kids over and be able to complete that field day inside that event. So this would be something that would be scheduled and run from the district level to make sure that we are fair across the board in the usage of that. This would also provide an additional space for our youth sports to be able to use. We are running out of spaces to let them use. There are a lot of young Braves out there who want to be a part of the school district and our extracurricular activities. And so we're really stretching to find places for them to use for their sports that they have in the youth departments. Some of the questions that we've had, this one is about why we separated it out, why we didn't just have one $650 million vote, but we have three separate propositions. A statute was passed a few years ago that says if you have anything that's 1,000-seat capacity that's for an athletic or extracurricular activity, that you have to pull that out and be voted on. The taxpayers have to be allowed to vote on that separately from the educational spaces. And so that's why we have three separate proposals on this bond. Just a real brief description, and this is going to be important in a few minutes when I talk about how these things are going to be paid for, but just an overview of school finance. School finance pretty much has two buckets of money, both what comes in and what goes out. So we have our M&O and our INS. Our M&O is for our maintenance and operations money. So the school tax rate that you see is split up into these two areas, an INS rate and an M&O rate. And then on the M&O side, there's also state funding that comes into play. So that money comes in, and then it goes out to pay for anything that's the daily operations of the school district. So salaries make up 75% of the M&O bucket, but it also is for paper, chairs, any kind of supplies, utilities, anything like that that we have to run the district comes out of the M&O bucket. The INS bucket is strictly for bonded debt, so it makes our debt payment. We are capped at 50 cents by the state on how much you can charge tax rate-wise on the INS side. So when they went out for the last bond in 2017, they raised the tax rate on the INS side from 45 cents to 50 cents. That is the highest that rate can go. It cannot go higher than that. So with this bond proposal, it is not an increase in the tax rate at all. The way that we generate more money with this bond would be the additional houses that are here. So people that were already here are already paying the 50 cents on the INS side. So the new growth in the district would be what would generate the new money to be able to go out for more of a bond payment than what we currently have. Who sets those tax rates? Well, I just told you that we're capped on the 50-cent side. So the state tells us that we can't go higher than that, and you can only be as high as it takes to pay your bond payment. So on the INS side, it's set by what you have bonded out in debt. On the M&O side, TEA sets that tax rate. Up until about 3 years ago, school boards had the authority to set the tax rate, and while they still do officially adopt that rate, the state now tells us what that rate can be. So they've been compressing that rate for several years. This is what our tax rate has looked like over the last several years in Community ISD. You can see the yellow is the INS rate and the blue is the M&O, maintenance and operation. I think this is a better chart of that kind of shows you what it was in 17-18. It was at 45 cents for that INS rate, that debt payment. And then when they went out with that new bond, they increased that to 50 cents. And then you can see it stayed at 50 cents and will remain at 50 cents on the INS side. And then on the M&O side, it has actually been compressed by the state from $1.17 and then 106, 98, 96. And we have it listed at 96 for next year because we've not been given our rate. We have been told that it is going to be compressed again. So it's going to be lower than 96 cents, but we don't know what that is. So the very highest it would be the same rate, but it more than likely will be less than that. So the actual tax rate will go down. I know that a lot of people in Collin County have already got their appraisals and they've seen some increase. And so I just want to reiterate that your appraised value could go up. That is not something that's set by the school district, that's by the appraisal district. So they decide what your appraised value is. What the school district sets is this rate that you'll have to pay, and that will be decreasing as far as what rate you will have, whether the bond passes or not. This is a chart that shows the projections of where we are in enrollment. And I kept checking my email before we started tonight because I have updated numbers that are supposed to be here this afternoon. But I will tell you that this 3479, that is what we were projected to have by the end of this year. We have changed that number 3 different times this year. Right in December, it was 3335. That's what the demographers were projecting would be our enrollment for this year. We were over that in December, and so the demographers went back and studied again and increased it to 3479. We are currently at 3507, so we're already past that number again. The demographer had new numbers for me today. He says that the elementary numbers have all increased again. Middle school has increased and high school has stayed the same. So I should have those numbers by tomorrow since I didn't have them by tonight. What I do want you to know is that because we've already exceeded this 21-22, that means that all of the numbers following that will increase as well once we get up to that, what that is. And then if you'll look over, the red box on the side is an important red box when we're talking about enrollment, and our total district capacity in our buildings currently is 4,000 students. So we're nearing that capacity now. This is our projected numbers, and I know that's hard to read, but this is our projected numbers for next year. So when we come back in the fall, this is what we're projected to have. A couple of things I want you to notice. At the very far side there, you have totals, and the first one is Mclendon Elementary. It's saying that we will have 659 students there. That's a little bit lower than what we're truly expecting because our bilingual students are not calculated into that number yet. And so we're expecting it to be a little over 700 for Mclendon. Neesmith is the one that has really jumped up on us just in the last couple of months. There's been a lot of developments, finishing houses and closing on houses, and so those numbers are continually increasing daily. We're projected to have 804 students in Neesmith next year in the fall. That building was built for 750 students. So we are over capacity there. We're going to have to add 8 new teachers, new teaching positions at Neesmith, as well as moving around some of our special ed programs and making rooms for some special ed services that we need to offer. And so we have already, the board approved this month for us to go ahead and lease some portable buildings. We will be placing 2 or 3 portable buildings at at Neesmith, just as soon as they get here. We're hoping they'll be here by July so that we can get those in place. One of the buildings is an 8 classroom building with 2 restrooms. The other building is 2 classrooms, and then there's a possibility of a third building, which is also 2 classrooms. And so we're waiting to see exactly how that's going to play out as to the number of classrooms we will need there. But those are already on order, and we're waiting for them to arrive. So regardless of what happens with the bond, there will be portable buildings at Neesmith Elementary next year. And then you have Roderick Elementary. Roderick Elementary is estimated to have 710 students when they open. That's our new elementary in Magnolia Point in Josephine. And so that building was also built for 750 kids. So we'll be opening that at almost capacity at 710 students. Back to Mclendon, because of some additional space that we're going to need there, our 5th grade students at Mclendon, I'm not going to put a portable in for them, but I'm going to move them up into Ellis Education Center, up into the hallway where our current administration is. And so we're going to lease a portable building for our administration to move out to. We'd rather put the adults out there than the students. And we'll move them out and move 5th grade up into that area. Edge Middle School is estimated to have 943 students. That building was built for between 750 and 800 students. So we're over capacity there. So we will be moving the 6th graders out of Edge Middle School, and they will be over in the Ellis Education Center as well. There's 333 estimated 6th graders that will be taking over the Ellis area. Because we will be moving them over into the Ellis Education Center as well, we have to move our technology department out of the space that they're in that building. So we will have another portable building that we are going to lease to put our technology department in to make room for our students. Our high school, I just told you that we are moving. We just added those 8 classrooms to get us up to 1,000 student capacity. We are projected to be at 1,048 students in the fall. So we're hoping right now that we do not have to add any portable buildings. We're hoping that with our CTE building that we have and students going to CTE throughout the day, that will help alleviate being overcrowded in our high school for next year until we see what direction we need to go. This is the reason that we're seeing all of this increase in student enrollment. Just a lot of you are probably aware of all of these developments, but for those of you that are not, I'm just going to point out some of the ones that we have been dealing with, we've been working with. If you look at the green with the purple star in it over on the side there, that is Magnolia Point. They are actually working now, selling lots for phases 9 and 10, and so they'll be finishing some of that area out. That purple area the purple star is where Roderick Elementary is. Right across the street from that, you see that little yellow box. That's another D.R. Horton subdivision. Magnolia Point is a D.R. Horton subdivision. That small one there across the street is called Waverly. That is what Rick Horton refers to as his 3-car garage houses. It's going to be a little bit larger lots, a little bit larger houses, but there will be a subdivision there. You can actually see dirt work happening if you drive around that area. And then if you look at the yellow piece that's right on the edge of our district that goes up, that is another D.R. Horton development. It'll be homes similar to Magnolia Point. That's called Riverfield, and they will have 4,500 homes in that entirety. However, part of that subdivision will be in Caddo Mills. So we'll have the first 4 phases of that subdivision, phase 1 through 4. There is an elementary site proposed within that subdivision. If the bond passes and we eventually build those elementaries, that would actually be elementary number 7 that would be built inside Riverfield. There's the little L-shaped one that's going in there. If you look over, coming over to the Lavon side, you've got the big puzzle piece area that's there. That is called Elevon. You've probably seen that one on the edge of 6 and 78. You see just the very top part of that at 6 and 78. It's right beside Lake Point. That one is going to have 4,600 homes in it. And we are negotiating with that developer too for a site within Elevon. It would not be ready for number 4 or number 5, but could be ready for elementary number 6. And then you see there's Crest Ridge Meadows, and there's also Grand Heritage and their expansion. There's not on this map is another one called Nicholson Ranch that's going to have about 2,000 homes in it. That'll be on the south side of Elevon. So those are some of the areas that we're looking at. This says we've got 1,300 lots with 8 subdivisions that have groundwork overway. That's actually more than that. Mr. Welch and I have been working with the cities for an updated map, and there's lots more happening. There are 3 apartment complexes that are planned in the Lavon and Copeville area. There's also a villa area, which is just small single-family homes that is it's called the Villas of Lavon. That's also planned. And then there's a tiny home, just learned this week. There's a tiny home development that's going in, as well as a duplex development that's going in. So those are not ones that we have counted in any of this stuff, just ones that we've just learned about this week. So as those are getting approved, the cities are notifying us of what's going on and how many of those homes we can expect in the next year to 2 years. This is what we're looking at as far as a district is concerned with housing. So this year we're thinking around 1,100. The demographers did tell me yesterday that this number has gone up as well. We are expecting to be closer to reaching the 1,200 homes for this year, and then we're projected to have 1,200 new homes each year for the next 4 years after that. This is just a close-up of some of those developments that I showed you, Lake Point, Crest Ridge Meadows, Bear Creek, Elevon, Riverfield, and Magnolia. I've been asked several times about developers and whether they're working with the school district, and I can tell you that some are and some are not as cooperative with the school district. We have no jurisdiction or way to force them to give us land or to work with us on sites or properties. We do have 3 developers who have been very good to the school district. They are working with us. Rick Horton with D.R. Horton has been great to the district and has really worked with us to make sure we have what we need within his developments. John Marlin, who is with Elevon, he's been great to work with and has been helping us to make sure that we can accommodate students that he's bringing in his development. Mr. Justin Boone has also been working with us in his development to try to help us make sure we have stuff there. I do just want to name those out to let you know there are people out there that are working with us. There are others who are not as cooperative or who are not willing to work with us as far as getting sites within their developments, but they have at least come and let us know where their developments are and how many houses will be coming into their developments. This question we get a lot because of the ballot language. So a few years ago, our Texas legislators decided that there should be this language on all school ballots. So on all school ballots, I believe there's like 114 school bonds, a little over 100 school bonds on the May election. And all of those ballots will have a sentence that is in all caps that says this is a property tax increase, whether the rate is being increased or not. One of the reasons that this is on every ballot is because it is an extension of debt. So while the rate's not going up and that payment may not go up as far as that year's tax rate, it is adding debt to the school debt, and so it is an extension. So overall, it could be an increase in tax rate. I will say that as we continue to grow with more commercial properties that come in or industrial properties that come in, it takes the impact of the taxes, the burden off of the rooftop taxpayer, and puts more of that burden on the commercial property. So there are lots of commercial and industry people that are looking in this area. There's actually some investors who have purchased some properties and zoned them for commercial, but we've not seen a lot of that develop as of yet. This is actually what the ballot will look like. This is a copy from Collin County. We do have part of our district in Collin County and a little bit of it in Hunt County, so we have pictures of that. So you'll see the propositions A, B, and C, and we have for and against in English and Spanish. And then this is what the Hunt County one looks like. Very similar, just has the three propositions and yes or no, or for and against on that as well. A question that we've answered in some of these sessions is, are we going to go immediately into $650 million in debt? And I will tell you that that is not really how bonds work. We don't go out and get a loan or sell a bond for $650 million. So that's done in increments, and you sell them as you need them and as you have the financial capacity to pay for them. So if the bond were to pass, the very first thing that would happen is we would probably sell off bonds in June to be able to get the things started for elementaries 4 and 5 and middle school 2. That first sale would probably be around $40 to $50 million. And then we would wait. We already have the financial capacity and the growth for the $40 to $50 million. Then we would wait until we received our certified values from the counties, and that comes on July 25th. Once we receive that certified value, what that tells us, how much value do you have in your district, how much can you financially pay back, and then we would make a determination on how much we would sell in the fall to continue. So then we would make a determination on that number. We're expecting the preliminary values have come in for Collin County, and they were 25% increase. And so that's a pretty substantial increase. So we're expecting that in the fall we would be able to sell $100 million on those next $100 to $150 million on those next bond sales. So then we would just look at that and determine each time what we needed to sell. And again, with this, if you're not selling those bonds all at once, you're not building everything at once. So we would determine what our needs were at the time, what the growth was at the time, and then how much financial capacity we had, and determine how much to sell and what to build. We already know we have a need for 2 elementaries and a middle school. We also know that we have the financial capacity to sell off 40 or 50 immediately, and more than likely 100, 150 in the fall, based on what our preliminary values are. But then we would wait till the next summer and see what the preliminary and the certified values are, look at the growth, make sure things didn't slow down, and decide how much we would sell at that next selling for bonds. That would continue until you reach that $650 million if it was approved by the taxpayers. We would not sell if the growth slowed. So if something happens, this has been a question, especially lately with the interest rates starting to go up a little bit this year, is what we would do if things begin to slow down as far as the housing market is concerned. And so we would do the same. We would slow that down. Like I said, we already know we have the need for a couple of those campuses. But if that housing market slows way down and the growth stops, then our taxable value is not going to be as much. So we wouldn't have the financial capacity to sell those next bonds, so we would not sell those. We also wouldn't sell those because if the houses aren't coming, the kids aren't coming. And so if we don't need another campus, we wouldn't sell bonds to build something that we don't have students to fill. So that would depend each year on what the growth was and what our financial capacity was. What if the bond doesn't pass? So based on our current enrollment, I already told you that we're buying, or we're leasing, actually right now, we're leasing an 8-classroom portable building for Neesmith for next year, plus a 2-classroom and possibly a second 2-classroom all for Neesmith next year. We're going to lease 2 portable buildings for administration and technology next year to be able to move Mclendon students and 6th grade students from EDGE into the Ellis Education Center. So if the bond does not pass, we do have a plan, and our plan is to start putting portable buildings at all of our campuses. So we know that if a student moves into our district, we have a responsibility. We can't turn them away, and so we have to serve them and educate them. So we have to have a space for them to go. So we would begin to start putting portable buildings at all of our campuses to be able to help them. Now this says portable buildings can cost anywhere from $1 million to $2 million. And so we have not adjusted this since the board made the decision to lease the portable buildings instead of purchase. Just to give you an idea of purchase price for an 8-classroom portable building with 2 restrooms in it was $758,000 just for the building itself, and then the infrastructure of plumbing and electrical and a pad for it to be on, and the internet and technology that needed to be put in there. So we were looking at those running right close to $1 million per building that we would be putting on campuses. We are hoping to be able to lease that to cut down on that cost a little bit. It will just depend. We'll have to look at, if the bond does not pass, then we'll have to look at the number of years that we would have those portable buildings and whether it's financially feasible and smart to lease versus purchase. So we would just have to look and determine which one makes more sense for the district. The one thing that I wanted to point out, I said earlier about those 2 buckets of money, is if we have to pay for portable buildings, whether we lease or purchase, we cannot use INS funds to do that. That's only for bonded debt. So we will have to use money from the M&O side, and that side I told you is 75% of our salaries for our employees. So we would have to use that side of our budget and our funding to pay for any portable buildings or anything we did outside of a bonded debt. This is a picture of where the portable buildings, so these are actually going to happen. When you put, a lot of people talk about portable buildings and, I can go down and get a building a lot cheaper than $750,000. Yes, most people could do that. As a school district, we can't. So when we do that, we have to have the input of architects and engineers, and we have to have everything checked off and go through a lot of red tape to be able to put portable buildings and put students inside them. And so this looks a little different. We will have next year for sure, regardless of what happens in the election, we will have that 8-classroom portable building on that side of our 5th grade wing at Neesmith, and then another either 2-classroom or 4-classroom area on the back side of that. This is Roderick Elementary. This is the one, our new one in Magnolia. I told you it's opening at 710. This year we'll be fine at 710. If the bond does not pass, then next year we will need to place a portable building next to Roderick, and so that portable building is planned just at the end of that building. There's not a lot of space out front, and so we put in that on one end of that portable building. This is for Mclendon portable building. We'll be okay this year with moving the 5th graders out, but the following year we'll have to start looking at portable buildings at Mclendon as well. This is actually the 2 portable buildings that we have already ordered for administration and for technology, and that is on the next to the Ellis building out by the old football field, and those 2 buildings will be placed there. This is for EDGE. We won't need one at EDGE next year because we're able to move the 6th graders across, and we think we can make it 1, maybe 2 years without a portable at EDGE, and then we'll need to put a portable building back in the back part of EDGE. This is we'll need to add 2 portable buildings to the high school. Not the first year, we should be fine this coming year. The following year, the next 2 years will be the 2 years that we'll start to see an impact at the high school. And so we will need to place actually 2 classroom areas at the high school, and those will go in the front of the high school building in that open area. So just a reminder to all of you, early voting does start next Monday. I can't believe we're already to that point, but next Monday starts early voting. That goes through May the 3rd, and then Election Day is Saturday, May the 7th. I do always take a chance to kind of plug another event that's happening on May the 7th along with the election. Our Educational Foundation is having a carnival for the classroom. It's where they raise money to give back to teachers and students in the district. And so they're having a carnival with Ferris wheel and carousel and amusement rides and fried Oreos and funnel cakes and all that fun stuff. They'll be happening in the parking lot of the high school. So it's going to be a fun day, a fun family day. And then the Clay Potter Band is going to give a concert that night at 8 o'clock. So I invite all of you to come be a part of that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Now we're to the fun part. Now we're to the questions. I've tried to cover as much as I possibly can based on questions we had in the past. But Mr. Heflin, one of our assistant superintendents, has a microphone, and we will be happy to entertain questions. And then I think we also have questions online. We have 2 questions online. Okay, do we have questions in the room first? Questions or comments?
I don't understand the buying and selling of the bonds. I know you say it's something like a credit card, but I didn't understand that.
So when a school district, it's kind of like getting a loan, but we sell bonds to investors. And so let's just take the $40 and $50 million one that we're talking about would be the first one that we would sell. That goes out to all kinds of investors like Capital One, Chase, Wells Fargo. I mean, all the big financial names that you've heard of. And they come in and they buy that bond. They buy that debt from you. And they negotiate with you, and this is something a lot of people don't understand with bonds, is when they negotiate with you, they negotiate an interest rate, so how much you're going to pay them back, of course, like a loan, but they also negotiate with you a call date, and a call date means the time that you can start paying it off early. So it might be a 25-year, most of them are 20 to 30-year bonds. So it might be a 25-year bond, but they're going to give you a lower interest rate for a longer call. So they'll give you a lower interest rate, but you can't call that bond for 15 years, which means you can't start paying it back early for 15 years. Or they'll give you a higher interest rate, but a lesser call date. So they'll let you start paying it back in 7 years, but you're going to pay a higher interest rate. So then you get all of these proposals that they have for that, and then the district has to choose which is the best for that bond sale, which one they're going to go with to sell that bond. So they sell that debt to that financial entity, and then we pay them back with bond payments every year.
So the buying is us paying it back, or paying it back?
Yes, they're buying the debt from us. We're selling a bond, and they're buying that bond. They're buying our debt is what they're buying. We're selling a debt, and they're buying it. That makes sense. The part that a lot of people don't understand is that call date. So a lot of people have asked me about our current bonds that we have in the district and what if we could pay them back early. So we do have one small bond that's its call date is actually next year, and so we could start paying a little bit of it back. We have another one that's like 3 years from now, and then the first big one that we have is not for 7 years, so we couldn't start paying it back early for 7 years. And then there's one after that that's longer than the 7 years. So you negotiate that, and they kind of vary depending on what kind of interest rate you can get on selling them.
Everyone, just a reminder, make sure you talk into the microphone. We're streaming online too, so they can't.
I'm sorry, I should have repeated that.
Yes, my name's Dale Davenport, and I've got a couple of tracts of land in this area, and I'm also on a couple of bank boards, and we buy and sell bonds. And Collin County bonds have always been, AA bonds or greater. They've been real good. But here's the problem, and here's a question that I have.
Okay.
And nobody seems to be able to give us a straight answer on this. When we deal with Collin County Appraisal District on appraisals, I'm getting notices today, property that was, let's say, 150,000, it's now 308,000 and stuff like that. And I thought that in the school finance laws that there was a certain rate that they couldn't go up per year. Maybe the rate is...
It's our rate.
But it's the appraisal that is killing everybody in Collin County. And the Collin County Appraisal District, you cannot get in there to talk to appraisers. They've COVID. We're past that. We'd like to be able to get in and talk to people direct, and we're not able to do that. And so you've got a lot of unhappy property owners that can't argue the valuation of their properties to even talk to Collin County Appraisal District. So I know that you may not have, even the county commissioners don't have control over the appraisal district. Who has control over the appraisal district? Because there's no transparency there.
So the comptroller's office actually has some control over the appraisal districts, and they're required. They have requirements on how much they're supposed to go up and are allowed to go up, and so that would be who would control that. I can tell you, we're building a house in the district, and people in our neighborhood have said the same things. There's either doubled or went up substantially this year. We unfortunately don't have any control. There is a control on us on the amount that we can go up on the rate, but we don't have any control on the actual, which we're not going up on the rate, but we don't have any control on those appraised values. Unfortunately, I will tell you that what I've been told in talking to Collin County and Hunt County is that as this growth is coming in and as there's more things happening in the district, that those appraised values are going to continue to go up. I know that's not good news. I don't want to want mine valued or to go up either, but that is what I've been told. I can try to give you some contact numbers that we have for Collin County and try to help you. I don't know if it'll get through. I've not called them, but we have some numbers on those appraised that we call to get our appraised values. So I'm sorry for that. I wish I could help you. I don't know what else to say to that. I hate that.
It's the big picture, and it's the biggest question in the room right there.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. With us not having any control over it, I'm not sure how we can assist with that, other than trying to give you some contact information of who you might could contact.
Thank you.
Where's the funds going to come from for the new teachers? They're just
That will
going
have
to take how to do all the schools.
So the funds will have to come out of our M&O bucket, that bucket that I talked about. That's where we'll pay for new teachers. I will tell you guys that we are adding a little over 100 new positions in the district because of these enrollment numbers. If we can fill them all, that's our plan. We have, I think, 86 still open, so we're working on that. But that comes from the M&O side, and that's generated from that 96-cent side of that tax rate, and also from state funding. So every student generates funds from the state, and so that money will be generated to pay for teachers and staff members. We have to have more bus drivers, and everything, increases when students increase. Other questions? What are the 2 questions online? Cooper, do you have those?
Okay, our first question is from, I think Brittany Fuqua is how you pronounce, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong.
Okay, we'll call her Brittany.
Yes, Brittany said, Proposition A question, with the proposed new elementary and middle schools, are there any thoughts of making them intermediate schools to break apart age ranges in the schools?
Currently, there is not any plans to do that. There was some discussion in our long-range facility planning about down the road possibly having some early childhood areas and some intermediate campuses. For right now, in trying to meet the needs of our increased enrollment as quick as we can, those campuses will still be pre-K-5 campuses, and our middle schools will be 6 through 8. We have talked to our architects about the design of the middle schools. if the bond passes. And we're talking about ways to kind of separate sixth grade from the seventh and eighth grade within wings within that building. But as far as the grade levels that would be at each campus, they will remain the current structure.
And then the only other question we have right now, are there plans to open a new high school?
I try to avoid that question as much as possible because I know that's going to be very controversial, and it'll have to be a decision that the district will really have to study and look at and decide what direction we want to go. I can tell you that the proposed information that we have here tonight, a lot of people talk in years. We've tried to avoid talking in years this time for this bond because the last bond was supposed to last 10 years. It didn't because the growth came faster than they expected. So I try to talk, instead of this lasting 10 years, I tell everybody this will last until we get to a capacity of 10,000 students. So whether that's next year or 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road, the buildings that we have listed will get the district to 10,000 students. At that point, the district will have to make a decision whether they want to have one large high school that's more than 2,100 students, or if they want to explore possibly having multiple high schools within the district. We won't make that decision with this bond package. It will be something that our long-range committees and our administrators will talk about as we move forward. We still have a lot of room moving from 1,000 to 2,100 at the high school, so we have some time to kind of think through that and make a decision on what we want our district to be.
I do have one more. I think it was posted on another group and then forwarded. Christy Nix asked, if the bond does not pass, will my tax rate automatically go down immediately?
No. So we still are generating the money for the previous bonds, and so we will do that. We also, until those call dates come in when we can start paying them earlier, our bond payments will be the same. As we have more people paying that rate, more money will be coming in, and there is a possibility that it could start decreasing, but it would not be an immediate decrease. That's it. Other questions in the room, or other questions online? If anybody watching has a question or a comment, we would be happy to entertain that or try to answer anything that we can answer for you. I'll just say from the district standpoint that we really want to provide as much information as possible. We want the community involved in the decisions that we make, and so we are really encouraging, regardless of how you're going to vote, that everybody go to the polls on the 7th and cast your vote. We really want this to be a record-breaking turnout for voters. We want everybody to have a voice. We really want to hear what our community thinks, and we want to get that input out there so we know which direction we as a district will be headed in the next few years. Okay.
This one, I don't think so much the school district has a say on, but with the traffic coming to the district, are there any plans on expanding Highway 6 and FM 1138 North?
Okay. I can speak just a little bit to that, just what I know. We've been attending several city council meetings, so I'll tell you what I know, but I will also let you know that I'm not an expert, and we have not been at the table for a lot of those discussions, and so we are just starting to kind of get involved in that. I do know that Highway 6, we have met with TxDOT. I was actually at a city council meeting in Nevada. 6 is planned to expand. They've already have the plans for that. They're planning on going to 4 lanes and then 6 lanes. Down 6, there is a possibility of there being a loop around Nevada, so it didn't go straight through Nevada, but the city council is trying to decide which of those options they like best, and they're working with TxDOT on deciding how that will look. But 6 will be expanding. From the TxDOT representative, they are wanting to get started on that sooner than later. She did say they already have plans for expanding the shoulders of 6 first, so they'll add area on each side first, and then it'll go into expanding to 4 lanes and then eventually 6 lanes. 1138, we actually have talked to TxDOT They've been doing some traffic studies of 1138. We have our concern here is because of with our increased enrollment and with all of 3 of these campuses right here together, it causes a lot of congestion and issues with traffic. So they're looking at that to see what some solutions would be. Of course, their immediate solution that she told me was to not have so many people in one place. So we're trying to look at how we can help with that. But in the meantime, they're studying it. I don't think they have any immediate plans to do anything to 1138, but they are looking at for possible issues and concerns.
Brittany asks, with new bus routes coming, are there thoughts of changing school times for the campuses?
Yes, we have actually changed times. Those are listed on our web. No, they're not. Okay, sorry. We have not listed those on the website yet, but we have changed the times for next year. We're running, this year we run a 2-tiered system. So we run our elementary at one time and then our middle and high school at another time. What has happened is that our middle and high school have now gotten so large that we can't run them together. So next year we'll be running like a 1.5 tiered system. We'll run our elementaries. While our elementaries are running, we'll have separate buses that will start running high school. When our elementary finishes, they'll come in and run middle school. And then it'll happen kind of the same way in the afternoon. So we are going to add anywhere from 7 to 10 buses next year. And so we're just kind of looking at how we can make those routes work for our different systems that we have in place.
Another question. Mark Wofford asked, how far out will Prop B and C be if they are passed?
I don't have the calendar in front of me. I can tell you that the first phase of the bond would be the 2 elementaries and the middle school number 2 and some administrative buildings. That's in the first phase of that. I believe the football field comes in either year 2 or 3, and the indoor facility is several years down the road. I'm not exactly sure on the number. Alex, do you know that? Okay. I'm not sure. I will get that and we'll post kind of what the projection is. Again, when we're talking about years, that could change if enrollment numbers come faster than are projected.
That's it.
Any other questions or concerns or comments? Anybody have a comment for us in giving out more information or ways to get more of this information out to our community?
One more.
Okay.
With all the new students coming in over the years, will this increase the district from its current, they say 4A status, but 4A status?
Okay, so this year we were 4A Division II for our football, so that's the lesser of the 4A division. And then with the numbers that we turned in October to UIL, we moved up. So next year we will be playing a different district. We will be in 4A Division I next year, so it'll be a different group of people. We'll be playing, I know Sulphur Springs is in that group, and I'm not sure of all the other.
Paris, Maybank, Kaufman, I don't remember the rest either.
Okay, so there is an adjustment to that. If the numbers fall true to the projections, then the next time we do alignment, we will bump up to 5A.
Okay, that's it so far.
Okay. Other questions?
We're about a 30-second delay.
I have one question.
Okay.
It would be great if the school district would get behind. North Texas Municipal Water has a 350-acre tract on County Road 644 that they're doing an open sewer plant.
Okay.
And it would be great if they would help keep that from coming into our community here. It's just an open cesspool, and they filed permits with the TCEQ. And we had a meeting with the city of Josephine with it. There was over 100 people that showed up for it. Everybody's against it, or at least 95% of the people in that meeting were. And it's something that needs to be brought out in this community about an open sewer plant that we do not need in this area here.
Okay, and so is that in Josephine city limits?
It is in their ETJ, it's on County Road 644, about a half mile north of Josephine.
Okay, so Mayor Turney would have information, if I could reach out to him, he would have information on that. Okay,
To help fight that.
okay. We will reach out to them and see if we can get some information about that so we understand exactly what's going on.
We have run up against our 7 o'clock deadline.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. I do have an open door policy, so if you have questions or think about comments afterwards, please reach out to me. I'd love to sit down and talk to anybody about the needs of the district and any suggestion or ideas that you have on how we best meet the needs of our students. So thank you so much for being here.